Welcome to Executive Leaders Radio, your spot in the corner office, the radio show where executives share their secrets to success. Executive Leaders Radio.
You're listening to Executive Leaders Radio, broadcast from the offices of Cressa, your commercial real estate advisors. This is John Schuhart, an executive coach with Graybeard Coaching. My co-hosts today are Haley Morris from Cressa, John Yetman from AEG, Lisa Curtin from Caldwell CPA, and Katie Brewer. Katie, who are our guests today?
We have Kenyattah Robinson, President and CEO of Mount Vernon Triangle Community Improvement District. Loretta Deluca, CEO, Delcor Technology Solutions. Randy Altschuler, CEO of Xometry. And Chris Spanos, co-founder and CEO of Urgently.
All right, thank you. It is now my pleasure to introduce to you Kenyattah Robinson. Kenyattah, what is the Mount Vernon Triangle Community Improvement District?
We're a business improvement district, one of 11 so-called bids in the District of Columbia.
And how large or how small is the Mount Vernon Triangle Community Improvement District?
Footprint-wise, we're 72 acres, so 1/4% of all land area in Washington, D.C. Our staff is comprised of 3 full-time staff, 1 consultant, 7 clean team ambassadors who clean the streets and keep the streets safe on a day-to-day basis, and then a lot of outsourced services.
You're the president and CEO there. How'd you get involved?
I was actually at Jones Lang LaSalle at the time, where I worked in their public institutions group downtown on K Street, and I happened to be reading the Washington Business Journal, and I saw that the Mount Vernon Triangle CID was looking for a new president after the previous president, Claire Alexiak, moved back to Madison, Wisconsin. And so I lived in the CID at the time, and I thought, well, let me check and see what this is all about. And a couple of days after my interview, they called and offered me the job.
Cool. Where'd you grow up?
New Orleans.
And whereabouts in New Orleans?
On the Upper Ninth Ward. Okay.
And do you have any brothers or sisters?
I do have a younger brother and a younger sister.
Okay. And tell us about your parents.
My mom, she is one of, only child, my grandmother. My grandmother moved from Gulfport, Mississippi when she was a young woman. And my father, I met my father one time growing up in life. So by and large, I was raised by a single mom until she married when I was 2 years old.
And what did she do?
She worked at what was then the U.S. Customs Agency that then got folded into the Department of Homeland Security. She was an administrative officer, secretary early in her career, rose up the ranks to the head of all administrative operations for Homeland Security in the Southeast U.S.
Sounds like she set a pretty amazing example for you. Who's got the next question?
I have a question for you. So when you were growing up, can you tell me some of the things that you might have done when you were growing up in the Ninth Ward of New Orleans?
Yeah, so I was very involved in a lot of activities. My mother kept me involved in things other than academics, which were very important. But I was in Boy Scouts. I also played sports. I played baseball, and I eventually played football in high school. And then I was very involved in our local church in New Orleans as well.
Okay. What kind of things did you do with the church?
So I was an alkalite. So that was a lot of fun, being able to light the candles and extinguish them at the end of church service. But then also just being involved with the youth group there, some of the catechism studies, and speaking on Sundays at church, doing some of our various celebrations.
So how does your early experience at church, how does that relate to what you're doing now in the Community Improvement District?
Well, in church you learn a lot about service and, giving back, being part of a family that does become your family once a week. And so within a community, we try to build community among folks who come from, all walks of life, whether they work there or live there. And then also just, encourage people to give back to the neighborhood through the various activities and programs that we put on.
Hey, so you were in New Orleans when Katrina hit. How did that affect you?
I was actually in Ithaca, New York.
You were in Ithaca.
I was in business school.
But then you went back to New Orleans and bought houses?
Yeah,
How did that all tie in?
Yeah, so I was in Ithaca, New York, my second year of business school. I actually took a week off of business school to be with my family who was in Jacksonville, Florida. So they weren't in New Orleans when the storm hit. But then we traveled from Jacksonville to New Orleans to basically see our home, the home that I lived in when I was in high school, effectively destroyed. The realization that struck when, I saw all of the possessions that we had, the material possessions in our front yard and effectively turned to paper mache, was that everyone's okay. All of my family members are still here. These are just things, and things can be replaced. And so that experience, sort of really gave me a different perspective on life and what's important. From there, we rebuilt that house. There were other opportunities to purchase more properties in New Orleans. My mother did, and now has a pretty nice small portfolio of homes. And I built property in Mid-City New Orleans as well.
So in the green room, we spoke about some hardships growing up and meeting your father once in high school and your house being foreclosed on. And a lot of people would go in a different direction. So wondering what you can attribute to putting you in the direction that you went in and the extracurricular and where you are today.
Yeah, sure. So the one thing I learned from my mother was resilience. And that is, no matter what happens in life, you don't look backwards, you look forward, and you maintain a positive outlook. And, through that, you actually learn. You learn, well, what would you do different next time? And it's never a failure if you don't learn a lesson. And so, that aspect of my life, and that's, being resilient and understanding that there are opportunities to do better and to do different next time, and they'll always be there. That's something I took from that experience.
Kenyattah, you said you played football. What position did you play in football?
I played a lot of positions in football. We were a smaller high school football team, and so at times on offense I played quarterback or running back or split end, defensive back. I was a co-captain of the football team my senior year.
And how does that relate to what your role is with the current organization? Yeah,
so within the organization, because we are one of the smaller bids in D.C., sometimes I do have to wear a lot of different hats. At the end of the day, sort of be the quarterback of the football team. Sometimes you're a coach. Sometimes you roll up your sleeves and you're playing a position. And so just being adaptive and, serving in all of those roles. And I will say, too, that we were a smaller football team. We primarily did it for fun. Got a chance to play against Peyton Manning twice in high school. We graduated the same year. And so we were on the wrong end of that score on both occasions. But that was a fun experience. And, you learn even, when you lose, sometimes you win in life.
So what's the most gratifying part about running the Mount Vernon Triangle Community Improvement District?
Yeah, just being able to see how through planning, because everyone sees what's there now, right? The buildings, and they think everything happens overnight. But really the planning for this neighborhood started more than 15 years ago. The bid just celebrated 15 years on September 30th. A lot of the buildings that you see today have only been built within the last 5, 7, 8 years. And so everything starts with proper planning and proper strategy. It also starts with partnership, being able to bring people into a vision that started with Mayor Williams, and then driving a bunch of actors who may have their own individual interests toward that common vision and that common goal. And then once you begin to see some success, then you begin to market that success, and you start bringing other people into the vision of what you're doing. And before you know it, you put a little bit of gasoline in the engine, and then all of a sudden, you have what you see today, and that's the manifestation of a vision that's now sort of realized its full potential.
You mentioned something about a clean team. What's the clean team?
Yeah, so there's 7 gentlemen who are very hard to employ because they may have been homeless, they may have been incarcerated, a combination of both. And so at the foundation of any community, no one wants to be in a place if it doesn't feel clean and it doesn't feel safe. And so when the bid legislation was passed in the 1990s, that was the primary objective, was to get downtown Washington, D.C. to be a place that people felt comfortable going because it was a clean and safe environment to be. And so it started started through the Litter Act and just hiring individuals, paying them a living wage so that they can afford housing. And so they are the foundation of our business and of our organization. And these are the gentlemen who are out in the street every day keeping the neighborhood clean and safe.
And we understood that you also volunteered also to work with the homeless in your community too.
Yeah, we do. We have a number of community outreach programs through our MVT Groundworks initiative to give back to those individuals who are homeless in the community, who may be experiencing housing instability.
So that kind of relates back to your childhood when you had some housing instability.
Yeah, it sort of all comes together.
Kenyattah, what's your website address?
It's mountvernontriangle.org.
We've been speaking with Kenyattah Robinson. Don't forget to visit our website, executiveleadersradio.com, to learn more about our executive leaders. We'll be back in a moment.
Want help building your business with help from this show's CEOs? Our CEOs can help you uncover more opportunities, grow your sales, connect you, help you raise money, all the big issues, because our CEOs have been there and done that. They've succeeded in creating millions of jobs and earning millions of dollars, and some are available to advise you. Now, email mentors@executiveleadersradio.com. That's mentors@executiveleadersradio.com. The same CEOs you've heard on the show for 10 years may be willing to help you build your business, uncover new opportunities, grow your sales, connect you, help you raise money, all the big issues, because our CEOs have been there and done that, succeeding in creating millions of jobs and earning millions of dollars. And some are available to advise you. Now, email mentors@executiveleadersradio.com. That's mentors@executiveleadersradio.com.
We're back, and you're listening to Executive Leaders Radio. This is your host, John Schuhart, with my co-host, Haley Morris from Cressa, John Yetman from AEG, Lisa Curtin with Caldwell CPA, and Katie Brewer. It is my pleasure to introduce to you Loretta Deluca. Loretta, what is Delcor Technology Solutions?
Delcor is a technology consulting firm that works exclusively with associations, trade associations, and professional societies.
How large or how small is Delcor?
We are 63 people.
And what do you do there?
I am the CEO.
How did you get involved? How did you get to be the CEO?
Unintentionally, starting the company right out of college, actually.
All right. So that sounds like a great introduction. Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Montgomery County, Maryland.
And brothers or sisters?
One brother, deceased.
Okay. You said earlier in the green room you had a happy childhood. What do you think really made it so happy?
Just a very positive family atmosphere, allowing me to have self-confidence. I think that was very helpful. Grew up spending my summers in Italy, so I had sort of a double life, getting to know people in a different culture, family and friends over there.
So tell us about your parents. How come you went back to Italy so much?
They immigrated to the United States, to Washington, D.C. in the 50s, and my dad worked for the World Bank primarily after a lot of odd jobs working for a variety of embassies when he first came to the country, and that afforded me the opportunity to go back and visit because they went there frequently.
So it sounds like kind of an interesting immigrant story. What'd your mom do?
She did a bunch of odd jobs while my dad was being a chauffeur initially at the embassies. She would do laundry, she would clean, whatever it took to add some money to the household, but then she was always there for us when we came home from school.
So you said your dad worked for the World Bank, but he wasn't one of the vice presidents of the bank or anything. He was one of the people actually doing real work. Is that correct?
Exactly. He actually started there as a chauffeur, but then moved himself up into the AV department.
Okay, so he was really kind of a up by your bootstraps immigrant story.
Very much so.
What did you learn from your parents?
Oh, so much. One of the things is money related. not to spend money that you don't have. I mentioned that my dad didn't have a credit card until he was in his 60s. So that really had a huge influence on me. Work hard, and you can get somewhere in life. They certainly did that. Bought a house, bought cars, etc.
So I think you said your dad he always paid cash for cars. He
did.
So what did you learn from that?
Well, like I said, he was always of the spirit of don't buy things that you can't afford to pay for. Mm-hmm. So that certainly has helped me in my adult life.
Loretta, you talked about a letter writing campaign, or that you wrote some letters to companies when you were a child. Tell us about that.
Yes, I liked to fashion myself as an entrepreneur, I guess, at a very early age. So at around, I would say around 11 years old, I typed letters to companies like L'Oreal, Maybelline, Revlon, and I said to them, Avon does really well selling door to door. I really think you should look into this, and I'm the person to help you do that. And although nobody took me up on the offer, several of them responded to me.
So you're doing consulting services from 11 years old on, huh?
Apparently so.
Okay. Lisa?
Loretta, in the green room, you talked about you had an opportunity that you thought everyone did, which was at the end of summer, your family would leave and you would go back to Italy. And in Italy, you had a different culture than you did here in the U.S. You're a very confident woman and quite accomplished. Do you think either experience gave you more confidence in what you do today?
Well, absolutely. I mean, in Italy, I grew up being able to have a lot of freedom, whereas even at my earlier age here, we got to go out and play and not come home till dinner time, et cetera, but that quickly came to an end later on in my early teenage years. But in Italy, it was always like that. We were able to stay out, to have friends, not worry about things happening to you. So just the ability to be around other people in a free environment was really helpful to me growing up. Mm-hmm. Gave me another sense.
All right. So what's the main thing that you bring to your consulting company from Italy? How does that show up?
I think the whole concept of family is hugely important in the Italian culture, and our business is very much like a family. I've been told not to say that because there's so much fighting in so many families, so it's probably not a great thing to say about your company. It's more like a team, they say, to say that. But in a true sense, we really do care about our companies. And one of the core values, like the preeminent core value for us, is we have your back. And I think that really says a lot about the inner workings of the company as well as how we relate to our clients.
Mm-hmm. And what kind of culture did you bring from the U.S. to your business?
I think more of the entrepreneurial spirit. If you work hard, you can do well in life. Working hard to do well for the clients we serve, etc.
Is your positive energy would you say it's innate, or is it something you learned growing up, or a combination? Talk a little bit about that.
I think it's a combination of nurture versus nature. I think innately I'm probably positive, but also growing up with a family that made you feel good about yourself and never told you that you couldn't succeed at something, I think really has helped.
Mm-hmm. What makes you most excited when you get up every morning now?
I've been doing this for over 30 years, and every day I get up and I think, wow, how lucky I am to be doing this job. It's just my personal life and my business life are combined into one at this point. I have lifelong friends that I've made in the space, in the association community, which is very tight-knit, and that's what makes me excited.
Can you tell us a little bit about, I understand that you have a daughter from our discussion in the green room, and you do something also with your daughter every summer, too.
Absolutely. My daughter is 22 years old, and we have been to Italy together 21 times, 21 summers. She and I speak Italian to each other. She reads, writes, speaks it. So I was so happy to be able to give her that gift, the same one that my parents gave to me.
Why was that important to you?
It just was such a huge and positive impact on my life to be able to have what I then realized was such a gift that my parents gave me, being able to have friends and family in another country, have the experience of another culture in my life, and it has had a huge impact on her also.
What kind of impact?
she just appreciates and knows how important it is that she can go to another country and have family and friends there and communicate with them and understand the culture. And it's given her such a broad view of what's going on out there.
So your dad started as a chauffeur, your mom did domestic work at embassies. What do they think about you running your own company of 63 employees?
Well, it's really funny. I was just saying this to the other day at a leadership retreat that I don't even think my parents really understand what I do. I got an award a couple of years ago for something about the top partner in the association community, and they came to that, and it was the first time that they had ever seen me in that kind of an environment. And I got up on stage and did a speech, and they're sitting at the table, and I still don't think they have a clue as to what I actually do.
So what really floats your boat now that you've essentially made success in the business world?
Being able to, what's been most exciting for me is being able to actually to spend time and be a part of my daughter's life. That has been a huge carve out that I've committed to in my life ever since the beginning of when she was first born. So the fact that I'm able to focus on the business, but also knowing that I haven't taken anything away from her, has been huge for me.
So how do you pass that, or how do you work that into your company?
I think we're very cognizant about people having a life to lead outside of the business, and we value that. And I think that has a lot to do with why people have hung around Delcor for so many years. We've got people who have been there for 25 years, 20 years, 17 years, 15 years, 13 years, and we like to give them a good life-work balance.
So what do you need to do to balance your life?
I think I need to spend a little bit more time focusing on myself, like planning some vacations and downtime. I'm really involved and love what I do, but sometimes I don't think about taking some time for myself, frankly.
What's your website address?
Delcor.com, Delcor.com.
We've been speaking with Loretta Deluca. Don't forget to visit our website, executiveleadersradio.com, to learn more about our executive leaders. We'll be back in a moment. We're back, and you're listening to Executive Leaders Radio. This is your host, John Schuhart from Graybeard Coaching, with my co-host, Haley Morris from Cressa, John Yetman with AEG, Lisa Curtin from Caldwell CPA, and Katie Brewer. It is my pleasure to introduce to you Randy Altschuler. Randy, what is Xometry?
Xometry is a platform that connects buyers and sellers of custom manufacturing.
And how large or how small is Xometry?
We have 300 employees, and we're based here in Montgomery County, Maryland.
And how did you get involved?
I co-founded the company together with Lauren Zurf, and today I'm the Chief Executive Officer.
Okay, thank you. Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in New York City.
Okay, and how many brothers and sisters?
I have an older brother.
One older brother, okay. And tell us about your parents.
So I was brought up by a single mom. So we were a tight-knit family, raised in Manhattan.
So tell us a little bit more about her.
So my mom worked in investor relations at a financial services firm. Was a very hands-on mother. We had dinner together every night. She cooked it when she came home from work, and was very involved with both my brother and my life.
And what'd you get from your mom?
First of all, a hard work ethic. My mom was a very hard worker. She was responsible for supporting us financially and emotionally, so she always made sure she was there for us, even though she had a rigorous full-time job. Mm-hmm. Also, the fact that life can throw you some hard balls, and my mother never missed a beat. She had responsibilities, and no matter what, she was going to meet those responsibilities regardless of what obstacles were put in front of her.
Okay.
Randy, growing up in New York City, you and your younger brother, or older brother, excuse me, what kind of things did you guys do as kids?
We were very focused on academics, very focused on music. So our days were very, filled up with those sort of activities.
Okay, what was your first job?
I used to babysit.
Okay, how did that work out for you?
I'm no longer a professional babysitter. I do it now as a passion because I have 3 young children, a 12-year-old and a 9-year-old and a 3-year-old. So I'm still very involved with that.
Okay.
So what you learn from babysitting that shows up today?
Not much, frankly.
No? Okay. Nothing that carries over. All right.
That 3 children are enough, and I have more than enough respect for teachers everywhere.
There you go. Okay, thank you.
Randy, you were involved in a squeaker running for a congressional seat in New York. Talk about that, what lessons you've learned.
Sure. Well, I spent most of my professional career in business, but decided that it would be helpful to try to bring the skills that I had in business to the political arena. And so back in 2010, I ran for Congress. It ended up being the closest race in the nation that year, and I was actually ahead and came to Washington, D.C. for the orientation for new Congresspeople. Unfortunately, about a month later, after the absentee ballots were counted and we spent some time in court, I ended up losing the race. So I got a small touch of it.
But you told us you learned to trust your gut, right?
Yeah, I think as a business person, often you surround yourself, if you're smart about it, with people who are deep and knowledgeable in their specific areas. But you have to know sometimes when, even though he or she may be better at marketing, he or she may be better at sales or technology, sometimes you as the entrepreneur or as the CEO or as the leader have to trust your own gut. And I think in politics, particularly when you're new to it, you sometimes give that up to professional consultants. You can see that even when I watch other candidates run. Sometimes they don't trust their gut, what made them successful, and go with what everybody else says, and you pay for that.
Mm-hmm. Where did that passion for politics come from?
I think it was instilled in me early on by my mother, the sense that we are responsible not just for ourselves, but for our entire community. And what happens in this country or what happens in this world affects all of us. So it's better to get involved and play a role in it rather than just chattering about what you heard or read. Do something about it. I'm a doer, and getting involved with politics is one way you can contribute. There's lots of other ways, too.
Where did you first get involved?
I got involved in high school. So I, as I said, grew up in New York City, and I used to volunteer for local campaigns, handing out leaflets, eventually doing more things. So very involved.
Haley?
You said you're not afraid to fail, and you have a confidence about you, and wondering if you got that from your mom or if you just got that from your successes, and just to talk a little bit about that.
One of the reasons why I'm not afraid to fail is that I'm fortunate to have so much already. And I think all of us are, particularly here in the United States. We grow up, many of us, and not all of us, grow up with food, a place to live. That's not something that is a given around the world. So I always feel fortunate, and even when I fail, I fail. I still come home to a beautiful family. I still come home to a place to live. I still have plenty to eat. So that are the basics that all of us need, and with that as my foundation, that gives me the confidence and the courage to go out and try things and often fail.
What about when you were a young kid? Because that outlook obviously has grown as you've gotten older. So were you that way then?
Certainly instilled by my mother. She was going to make it work, and she made it work.
Was there one thing that your mother said to you when you were growing up that stays with you today? Because she's such an influence in your life, a positive one, which is great.
No, there's not. I've had 3 companies, and investors often ask, what was the aha moment? There are no aha moments for me. It's about every day. And what I learned from my mother was consistency is what counts. As a father, as a husband, as a business person, as somebody who wants to get involved in the community, it's about what you're doing all the time. And that's what I preach to my colleagues as well. It's make it count every day. Save your energy, save your effort, so you can be there every day.
So what does your mom think about what you're doing these days?
I think my mother's always been my greatest cheerleader, and she's always been incredibly supportive. And despite the fact that we had somewhat of a precarious position growing up, she didn't have a job when my father left, and she had to support us. She's surprisingly risk taker herself. So you would think that would teach her to say, hey, Randy, just do the cautious thing, don't go for it. But she encouraged both me and my brother to pursue our passions.
Randy, in addition to music, did you play any sports when you were in school?
I did. I ran track in high school, and then later in college I played rugby. I was not very good at either one of them, but I enjoyed it, and I worked hard at it. So I learned failure there pretty quickly.
And what did all of that hard work teach you in those sports?
That applying your effort is everything, and you don't always have to win. Sometimes you're going to lose, but you shouldn't be afraid of that failure. It makes you better, and if you're not trying things that you fail, then you aren't trying hard enough. You don't want life to be a layup. Sometimes struggle is good. Not always, and you want to make sure you have enough to eat and you want to have a place to live. Those are basic things you need. But failing in other areas in your life is okay and makes the highs, the wins so much more special.
Mm-hmm. Randy, you talk about failures. You had a great quote in the green room, which was, failures make the successes all that much sweeter. Can you expand on that?
Absolutely. Particularly as an entrepreneur, your life is filled with ups and downs, and there are some awful days when you blow it for a customer, when you have a bad investor meeting, when something is failing. And then there are just amazing days when you have a great success with a customer. Somebody sends you a comment and says, I love your company. And when those come in, it's because you worked so hard to earn that, because it was hard. That's what's amazing, and that's what brings it all to life.
Compare being a CEO to being a father.
There are some similarities. Both are a lot of work, and both require a lot of patience. But I love to hug and kiss my kids. I wouldn't do that with my employees.
That's probably not a bad idea. If you could teach your kids any one lesson, what's it going to be?
Do something that's meaningful.
Yeah? Tell me more about that. How do you do that? How are you going to do that?
I think all of us have our own special mission. Not everybody is intended to be a CEO. Not everybody is intended to be an athlete. Everybody has their own mission. And I think if you can fulfill that mission, you will find peace with yourself. And I will urge my children not to do what others tell them to do, not to do what is the common accepted knowledge, but to look into their hearts and find what is truly something that drives them, something that is fulfilling for them, and to pursue that. Even if there's difficulties, even if it doesn't earn them a lot of money, even if it's not glamorous, that's what's worth it. That's how you find that inner peace.
So it goes back to what you said a minute ago. It's trust your gut, huh?
Trust your gut.
All right. Randy, what is your website?
It is Xometry.com, Xometry.com.
All right, give me that one more time.
Xometry.com, which is Xometry.com.
All right. We've been speaking with Randy Altschuler. Don't forget to visit our website, executiveleadersradio.com, to learn more about our executive leaders. We'll be back in a moment.
Want help building your business with help from this show's CEOs? Our CEOs can help you uncover more opportunities, grow your sales, connect you, help you raise money, all the big issues, because our CEOs have been there and done that. They've succeeded in creating millions of jobs and earning millions of dollars, and some are available to advise you. Now, email mentors@executiveleadersradio.com. That's mentors@executiveleadersradio.com. The same CEOs you've heard on the show for 10 years may be willing to help you build your business, uncover new opportunities, grow your sales, connect you, help you raise money, all the big issues, because our CEOs have been there and done that, succeeding in creating millions of jobs and earning millions of dollars. And some are available to advise you. Now, email mentors@executiveleadersradio.com. That's mentors@executiveleadersradio.com.
Back, and you're listening to Executive Leaders Radio. It's my pleasure to introduce to you Chris Spanos. Chris, what is Urgently?
Urgently is a global mobility assistance platform. We have a simple premise: if it moves, it will break, and it will need assistance. And we started by reinventing roadside assistance, but we built a platform for the future of mobility, which is changing rapidly in front of all of our eyes.
All right. How large or small is Urgently?
We are about 250 people and over $100 million in revenue.
Okay, and what do you do there?
I am the CEO and co-founder.
All right, and how'd you get involved?
In 2013, Uber was changing the culture, on-demand economy, and we had a unique opportunity where there was a team, some early technology, some assets around a roadside assistance network, and a very clear problem in the marketplace around terrible roadside assistance, which I think most of us have been victims of. So,
all right, thank you. Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Arlington, Virginia, and Oslo, Norway.
All right. Well, that's an unusual combination. How did that come to be?
My father was in the military, and Oslo was his last overseas tour.
Okay. So what did you get from your dad?
Hard work, discipline, a quiet commitment to doing the right thing every day.
Mm-hmm. And tell us about your mom.
My mom was in healthcare. But she also took care of the household, took care of us when my father was away, which was quite often.
Okay.
How many brothers or sisters do you have?
I have a younger sister.
And what was your growing up like? How did you have what kind of relationship did you have with your sister?
We had a pretty good relationship. We're very different people. I was very sort of active and always out of the house doing things. So,
and you obviously were in Oslo together when you were part of the family. Mm-hmm. Did she have the same experience you had in Oslo?
I think we had different experiences. Again, I was always out and active, playing sports. And growing up in Oslo is wonderful because during the summer the sun never sets, so this whole come home when it's dark doesn't happen. And it was a very safe environment, and so we were just all over the place. And then during the winter, it's skiing and skating, and I had a lot of friends, Norwegian friends. So.
In the green room, you talked about living in Oslo and then coming back to Arlington, Virginia, and having to adapt, and your appreciation of other cultures. How does that translate in your business today?
Well, we do a lot of business overseas, outside the U.S., so I'm very comfortable being in other countries, other cities, other cultures, and I think that ease translates into just making our partners in those markets feel comfortable with us.
How do you do that in your business with your staff? How does your staff adopt the same feelings that you have about other cultures?
Well, we do a lot of team travel, and so I've exposed them. For those who haven't been overseas or done a lot of it, they travel with me a lot, and they see how easy it is or how comfortable I am, and they get into it pretty quickly. So.
When you were young, you had the entrepreneurial spirit. You did a lot of things, and you talked about knocking on doors as part of the key. Can you expand?
Yeah, so I mowed lawns, I raked leaves, I shoveled snow, and I got the work by knocking on people's doors in our neighborhood and asking if they needed assistance, and that's what I did.
What did you do differently than all the other kids?
Well, first I was out knocking on doors, right? So you kind of have to do that, and then I had a good reputation of doing good work, and so then the referrals came in.
John? You also talked about the fact that you were maybe too successful doing that, and maybe your inventory built up or your backlog built up.
Well, there was
What did you learn there?
Yeah, one snowstorm where I knocked on too many doors, overpromised, and the day after, when you're showing up at 4:00 in the afternoon and someone expects their walk shoveled in the morning, you learn pretty quickly what the market thinks about that.
So what do you bring from your lawn mowing, leaf raking, snow shoveling self? What shows up today at Urgently?
Well, I think one, it's an entrepreneurial spirit. It's an adaptability. There's no fear about knocking on a door, whether it's a partner or an investor, and I got very comfortable. The specifics matter, but I got very comfortable with the idea that talk to 20 to get to, be prepared for 18 soul-crushing conversations, let it roll off your back, and that I learned that at an early age. So,
okay.
How else does the ease when you were growing up, making friends and moving, translate into being a CEO today?
Well, I think it translates in the sense that I can make people feel at ease around me, whether it's a new employee, whether it's a new partner, And I think that is helpful, because at the end of the day, we're all in these new situations, and we want to feel at ease quickly. So I think that helps.
Let's talk about the sports that you did. You mentioned skiing. What other sports did you do?
I played baseball, and I played tennis.
What position did you play in baseball?
I was a pitcher. My father was a catcher in college, and so we played catch, but it was basically me pitching to him. That's how I learned to pitch.
And what are the attributes of a pitcher?
Focus. I think one of the things I learned was that you don't always have to throw a strike, right? You in the sense of the perfect pitch. Sometimes you throw outside the strike zone in order to set up the next pitch or whatnot. So there's an intelligence to pitching. It's not just, there's people who throw and there's people who pitch.
Kind of related to your earlier comment about you might get up to bat 20 times, so to speak, and only knock it out of the park a couple.
Yeah, well, I mean, you just have to, again, I think it comes down to failure, right? Like, not every pitch has to be a strike, right? You don't have to succeed on every pitch in a sort of a classic way.
Okay. You said earlier one of the things that was great about living in Norway as a kid was you learned to be comfortable outside the USA. For people who haven't been outside the USA, how does that show up?
Well, I mean, I think it shows up in, people are people everywhere, right? The languages are different. The cultures can be very different or similar. I think it's just I was blessed with being outside the U.S. to have a very wide open aperture for environments, for people, for different situations, and to not judge and react instantly.
John?
So I read that Urgently was near the top of the Inc. Fastest growing companies list. So how did that happen?
Well, when you go from, we were number 12. It was pretty awesome. But when you go from having a $250,000 in revenue to $31 million in revenue over 3 years, that kind of
helps with it.
Yeah,
math.
I mean, because that's how it's a math, right, ranking. So based on revenue growth.
But what attributes that you took with you to the business helped you get to that level?
Well, our number one focus is customer happiness, right? And we were very fortunate that Mercedes was our first big customer, and we really focused on delivering happiness to them, knowing that if we did that, they would bless us in the marketplace, and then others would follow, and then that's what led to the growth.
So you mentioned you are one of the co-founders. What do you bring to the table that the others don't?
Yeah, so there were 6 co-founders. We all had different backgrounds, sets of experience. What I brought was a strategy, vision, clarity of vision, the ability to raise money, to articulate our story, and then to identify good talent to bring on the team.
So what gets you out of bed in the morning?
Well, mobility is being transformed, right? EVs, autonomous vehicles, micromobility, robotic delivery, drones. This is a growing, changing market, and we have a seat at the table. And because we do the assistance piece, no one can really take it away from us because we're the unsexy side of this business, but a necessary side. So we have the opportunity to build a multi-billion-dollar global business, and that's a rare thing, and that's energizing.
All right. What's your website address, Chris?
GetUrgently.com.
Okay, give me that one more time.
GetUrgently.com.
All right. We've been speaking with Chris Spanos. Katie, who were our guests today?
We had Kenyattah Robinson, President and CEO of Mount Vernon Triangle Community Improvement District, Loretta Deluca, CEO of Delcor Technology Solutions, Randy Altschuler, CEO of Xometry, and Chris Spanos, co-founder and CEO of Urgently.
I'm John Schuhart from Graybeard Coaching, and I want to thank my co-host Haley Morris from Cressa, John Yetman from AEG, Lisa Curtin from Caldwell CPA, and Katie Brewer. Also, I'd like to thank our audience for listening. Otherwise, we wouldn't have a radio show. Don't forget to visit our website, executiveleadersradio.com, to learn more about our executive leaders. Have a great day. Bye-bye.